This morning at 11 o'clock, I tried to explain to you why I was not an environmentalist, but rather was an ecologist. And I tried to give you some idea, at least from my point of view, what ecology meant as distinguished from environmentalism. And the point that I try to make most fundamentally is that where environmentalism tries to patch things up, where environmentalism applies band-aids, cosmetics, and everything that you can think of to the environment, where it sort of takes hold of nature, strokes it, as Nixon would say, and says, produce. We'll exploit you, we'll ride you, we'll squeeze you, we'll twist you, we'll turn you, but just don't poison us. Okay? Where it tries to use soil, pour chemicals in, but if only they weren't poisonous, everything would be great. And if you've seen one redwood tree, you've seen them all, sort of thing. Where it believes in good management and good husbandry, ecology believes in a genuine harmonization of humanity with nature. And that harmonization of humanity with nature depends fundamentally upon the harmonization of human beings with each other. The attitude that we have had toward nature is always dependent upon the attitude we have had toward each other. Let's not kid ourselves. There is no such thing as a pure nature. It's going to take a long time for us to purify ourselves before we can look at nature and say, this is what nature is. The simple fact is right now that I'm not only not an environmentalist, I got some hot news. I'm not a futurist. I'm not a futurist at all. I'm a utopian. I want to see this word revived. I want to see us use it. I want to see us think utopia, not think futurism. What is futurism? Futurism is the future as it exists today, projected 100 years from now. That's what futurism is. If you have a population of X billions of people, how are you going to have food? How are you going to do this? Nothing has changed. All they do is make everything either bigger or they change the size. You'll live in 30-story buildings. You'll live in 60-story buildings. Frank Lloyd Wright was going to build an office building that was 1 mile high. That was futurism. The simple fact is I just don't believe that we have to extend in the name of futurism and in the idea of idealism the present into the future. We have to change the present so that the future looks very, very different from what it is today. Another thing that troubles me very deeply is the enormous extent to which social ecology or ecological problems are reduced simply to technological problems. That is ridiculous. It's absurd. The factory is a place where people are controlled, whether they build solar collectors or not. It makes no difference. The same relationships will exist there as will exist under any other circumstances where domination exists. If household means that women take care of the dishes and men go out and do the manly work, such as make war and clean up the planet and reduce the population, where have we gone? Nothing has changed. What will a spaceship in Earth look like? What will it be? Who will be the general to give the orders? Who will be the navigator to decide which way the spaceship goes? Please bear in mind what the implications of these things are. If people live in cities that are 1 mile high, how the hell can you get to know each other? How can you have a feeling for the land in which you live when the landscape that you see goes up to a horizon 20, 30, and 40 miles away? Down on the ground, when I look up at the Empire State Building, I feel oppressed. I feel that I have been reduced to a lowly ant. I begin to feel the demand for an environment that I can control, that I can begin to understand. When I see plants growing around me, when I see life existing around me, human life, animal life of all its different forms, flora, then I can relate, this is my land. When Pete Seeger screams out, not Pete Seeger, excuse me, Guthrie sang out, this is my land, it meant land. It did not mean a skyscraper 1 mile high that towered over all of humanity, that was completely centralized, that was completely subject to manipulation and completely subject to control. What we have to do is not only think small, we have to think human. Small is not enough. What is human is what counts, not just what is small. What is beautiful are people. What is beautiful is the ecosystems and their integrity in which we live. What is beautiful is the soil that we share with the rest of the world of life, and particularly that special bit of soil in which we feel we have some degree of stewardship. It is not only what is small that is beautiful, it is what is ecological that is beautiful, what is human that is beautiful. What is important is not only whether a technology is soft or what it is between, otherwise known as intermediate, or whether or not, whatever it may be appropriate to. As I have said before, the Atomic Energy Commission is absolutely convinced that nuclear power plants are appropriate technology to the Atomic Energy Commission. The B-1 bomber is a very appropriate technology to the Air Force. What I am concerned with is, again, what is liberatory, what is ecological. We have to bring these value-charged words, and we have to bring these value-charged concepts into our thinking, or else we will become mere physicists dealing with dead matter and dealing with people as though they are mere objects to be manipulated in spaceships or to be connected through various forms of electronic devices or subject to world games, or finally set adrift on a raft or a lifeboat in which they kick off anybody else who threatens to eat their Unita biscuits or threatens to drink their distilled water. And that becomes eco-fascism. That becomes eco-fascism. And it horrifies me to think that anything ecological, even that word eco, could be attached to fascism. First and foremost, we must go back to the utopian tradition in the richest sense of the word. Not to the electronic tradition, not to the tradition of NASA, not to the tradition of Sir Isaac Newton, in which the whole world was a machine or a watch. Not to the idea that the faster you go, the better it is. The more you move, the richer you get. You can travel all over the country and learn nothing, because you're carrying something that's very important with you that will either decide whether you learn or not, and that is yourself. To recover yourself, to begin to create a community, and what kind of community? Imagination can begin to create. Imagination to power, as the French student said. Be practical, do the impossible. Because if you don't do the impossible, as I've cried out over and over again, we're going to wind up with the unthinkable. And that will be the destruction of the planet itself. So to do the impossible is the most rational and practical thing we can do. And that impossible is, both in our own conviction and in our shared conviction with our brothers and sisters, to begin to try to create or work toward a very distinct notion of what constitutes a finally, truly liberated as well as ecological society. A utopian notion, not a futuristic notion. It finally means this, that we have to begin to develop ecological communities. Not just an ecological society. It's very easy for me to palm that off. Ecological communities made up of comparatively small numbers of groups, in beautiful communities spaced apart from each other so that you could almost walk to them, not merely have to get into a car and travel 60 or 70 miles to reach them. It means that we have to reopen the land and reuse it again to create organic, French-intensive garden beds and learn how to develop a new agriculture in which we will all participate in, indeed a horticulture. We have to look for communities that we can take into a single view, as Aristotle said more than 2,200 years ago, and we have yet to learn a great deal from the Greeks, despite all their shortcomings as slave owners and as patriarchs. A community that we can take into a single view so that we can know each other. And a community in which we know each other not by virtue of sitting around and talking over the telephone or listening to some honcho talk over a microphone or listening to some bigger honcho talk over a television screen. It has to be done by sitting around around in communities, in those town meetings, and in those structures, which we have here in the United States as part of the legacy, at least the best legacy of the United States, and start thinking utopian in the fullest sense of the word. We have also to develop our own technologies. We can't let other people simply build them for us. They can't be transported from God knows where to us. We have to know how to fix our faucets and create our own collectors. We have to become richly diversified human beings. We have to be capable of doing many different things. We have to be farmers, citizens, and citizen farmers. We have to recover the ideal that even a Ben Franklin, who by no means can be regarded, in my opinion anyway, as anything slightly more than a Philistine, believed in the 18th century. You could both print and read, and when you printed, you read what you printed. That's what we have to bring to ourselves. We have to think not in terms merely of change, we have to think in terms of growth. We have to use the language of ecology so that we can touch each other with the magic of words and communicate with each other with the magic and the richness of concepts, not of catchphrases that are really snappy, input, output. Dialogue is longer, but it has a beautiful ring to it. Dialogos, speech between two, talking between two, logos, logic, reasoning out creatively, dialectically, and growing through conversation and growing through communication. This is what I mean by utopia. We have to read Fourier, we have to read Robert Owen, who created the idea of the decentralized so-called industrial village, non-hierarchical in its nature. We have to go back to the rich tradition of the New England town meeting and all that was healthy in it, and recover that and learn a new type of confederalism. And we have to go back not to leaders and led, but to teachers and students. We have to get away from the notion that there are those who are fit to lead and you're incompetent, and those who can only be led, and that's about it. Today, the real movements of the future, insofar as they are utopian in their outlook, insofar as they are trying to create not an extension of the present, but trying to create something that is truly new, that alone can rescue life, human spirit, as well as the ecology of this planet, must be built around a new rich communication, not between leader and led, between student and teacher, so that every student can eventually become a teacher and not a dictator, a governor, a controller, and a manipulator. It is out of that type of communication, out of that type of organic society, with that richness of language, where in fact we can finally reach the point of poetry in communication with each other, which we must strive for. Not electronics, poetry. Not something artificial, but real music. The music of communication and the poetry of communication has to be recovered. And above all, we have to think organically. We have to think organically, not electronically. We have to think in terms of life and biology, not in terms of watches and physics. We have to think in terms of what is human, not what is merely small or big, because that alone will be beautiful. Any society that seeks to create utopia will not only be a society that is free, it also has to be a society that is beautiful. There can no longer be any separation, any more than between mind and body can there be a separation between art and the development of a free society. We must become artists now, not only ecologists. Utopians, not futurists. Ecologists, not environmentalists. Thank you.